Hello and welcome to another episode of Meet the Expert on the Block. My name is Dawn Block. I'm with Century 21 Circle and I am your host for this live show. We're streaming live, just to let you know, we're streaming live on Facebook, my business and personal page. We're also on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Yes, thank you. And X. So if you're seeing us, I'm going to ask you to give us some thumbs up, give us some of those hearts. And you know what? We want interaction. I want people to ask questions because we're talking about a really good subject. It is something that's going to be very informational. And I think people need to know this. Absolutely. So, and I have a professional here. So we're going to be introducing her in a moment. So what I would like to do before I introduce my guests, I want to see if there's anybody out there. And okay, so I see our first person, Chris Black.
Hi, Chris.
Thank you so much. She says, hi, Dawn and Paulina. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining. He's always my support. So thank you so much.
He's your number one fan.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. So thanks again, Chris, for joining. So hopefully as we get going, we'll get some more people on and watching also. So I would like to introduce my special guest right now. This is Paulina Carlberg. She is with the House Doctors Property Inspections, and she is a professional radon inspector, right?
I am a radon professional, correct?
Radon professional. Yes. So what I would like you to do, Paulina, if you would not mind, give your contact information. How can people get in touch with you? And also because you never know, after we get done with this, there might be a lot of questions that you have to answer.
Okay, that would be great. So like Dawn said, I'm Paulina Carlberg, and I'm with the House Doctors Property Inspections, where I am the radon professional in the company. And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Awesome. So thank you for doing that. And again, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you asking me.
Yes.
Thank you.
We're in her office, we're her space.
Yes.
We're on site. That's what I should say. We're on site. So, and Chris Black is looking forward to the show. So we're going to start some of our questions here. I'd like to ask you, what was your role? Because we like to get to know our guests and what they did prior to doing what they're doing now. So why don't you let us know, what were you doing before you became a radon professional?
So something completely different. I never thought that I'd grow up to be a radon professional, but prior to working at the House Doctors Property Inspections, I was actually a personal trainer and a health coach for about 25 years. And probably around 2016, I was my husband, Rick Carlberg. He and I own the House Doctors Property Inspections together, but he was doing inspections on his own and decided that he wanted to start incorporating doing radon testing as part of his inspections. And so invested in the radon monitors, got his license, and almost immediately realized that the logistics of testing for radon during a home inspection and then going back, and as Dawn well knows, that you have to go back 2 days later to pick up the radon monitors, that was becoming very difficult for him. And so I had a flexible time schedule. So I was like, I'll pick up your radon monitor for you. So I got my license in 2016 and just started helping him out, just part-time, just running around and picking up all of his radon monitors. And then in 2020, when COVID hit, my studio closed down, and I was no longer going to people's homes to do personal training. Yes. So we both decided that I was going to be all in the House Doctors Property Inspections. So I gave up, stopped doing my personal training business, and then came on full-time on board to the House Doctors in 2020.
So how is it working with your husband all day long?
The truth of the matter is that we don't work together all day long. Rick is usually out in the field. I'm usually out in the field picking up monitors or doing networking for our company. But we actually are very lucky. We work really well together. Sometimes it seems like Rick's strengths are my weaknesses and vice versa. So it's actually been a really good collaboration together.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
That is great. So we are going to be talking about radon. We're going to be talking about what is radon. We're going to be talking about how can radon affect us, and also how we can protect ourselves from radon. Since we have the professional right here, we're going to pick her brain and ask a couple of questions. And the first one I want to ask is if you could give us a brief history about radon.
So the history of radon is probably starts way back before the 1980s, but really it was in the 1980s where there was a situation in Pennsylvania where a gentleman who was working for a nuclear power plant walked through radiation detectors and set the detectors off himself without the power plant even being it was still under construction. There was no nuclear fuel in the plant. And so they were very perplexed and trying to find out why this guy had all this radiation on him. It was literally coming from his clothes.
Oh, really?
Yes. The radiation was on his clothes. So the personnel at the nuclear power plant followed him back to his home to see if they could figure out what was happening, and found that the radiation was coming from his home. So immediately the EPA got involved, and they went into his home and tried to investigate, find out where the radiation was coming from. And they found that the radiation was coming from radon, and the levels of radon in his home were at 2,700 picocurie liters. And that was,
I was going to say, what is the normal radon?
So the normal is, the average, like in Illinois, is like 1.3. So that's a safer level. Anything under the number 4 is going to be.
Okay. So he was walking around, so it was sticking on his clothes?
Yes, it was literally on his clothes.
Oh, that's strange.
Yes.
I've never
radiation.
thought.
Yeah, who would have thought, right?
Yeah.
But that was really the beginning of them understanding what was happening in people's homes without us even knowing, because radon is invisible.
And you can't smell it.
Cannot smell it.
Can't taste it.
Can't taste it. You can't see it. It's literally radioactive. It's invisible and radioactive.
So how does it enter into our house?
So it can enter, because it's so tiny, pretty much through any cracks or crevices in your home, maybe an open sump pump, through the water, construction joists, anything like that. The radon can float up into your home.
A sump pump. So yes. So if your house doesn't have a basement, are you okay? I mean, could you still have radon coming in your house?
Absolutely.
Oh,
so
really?
We just say that the radon is closer to you if you don't have a basement. If you're living on a slab, then the radon is right there.
Oh, wow. Wow. Because everybody says, well, I know that I've had a house that I sold. It was a ranch, one level, and it did have radon. But in the past, it was like, well, you know what? I'm not going to test the house because, it's one level. It doesn't have a basement, so it probably won't have radon. That's not true.
Right. And there's a lot of misinformation about radon and when to test and when not to test out there. So I'm so grateful that Dawn is having me talk about this today so that people can understand what is happening inside their homes.
Well, I'm just going to stop a moment before I ask. I've got another person jumping on here. Oh, it's Brandon.
Hey,
Brandon. He says, hi, ladies. Go Dawn Block and Paulina.
That's my maiden name, Paulina Carlberg.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So, well, thank you, Brandon, for jumping on. I appreciate it
very much.
And thank you for joining us. So our next question is, what freaks me out is this guy you're telling me way back when had all this radon on his clothes, yes, which is kind of freaky. Yeah. I didn't know that. I didn't know it could stick on your clothes. But how can radon affect us?
So radon is the number 1 leading cause of lung cancer in non-smokers. The number 2 leading cause of lung cancer. Number 2 leading cause of lung cancer in non-smokers. Is that correct? Am I saying that right? Yes. Yeah. Number 1 leading cause in non-smokers. Number 2 leading cause in smokers.
So the freaky thing about this is that, and I thought when I wanted to get together with Paulina and do this live, is that we had just January, wasn't it January? Radon. prevention?
Yes.
Or,
So January is Radon Action Month. Yes.
so that's, and what got me going on this
I know.
was Channel 9 News had just had a discussion with one of the reporters was talking to somebody, basically a radon professional also about this. So I thought the first person, I'm like, let's get Paulina on here. We need to have her talk about this because I think this is something that anybody who is have knowledge for homeowners who are living in their homes and also for people who are looking for homes, that this might be something that they should test for to protect themselves.
Yes.
So how does radon affect us?
So basically, radon is as it starts off as a gas. It's actually uranium that sits in the soil. And when uranium degrades, it degrades down to radon. And then when radon degrades, it goes from a gas to particles. And those are the little tiny particles that, again, you can't see, taste, or smell. And they float in from the foundation of your home. And basically you breathe them in and they lodge in your lungs. And that's what causes the lung cancer.
So, I mean, doesn't that freak you out a little bit?
Yeah,
Like it really
scary,
does.
yes.
It is kind of scary.
Yes. But if you know, then you can fix it. Yes.
And that's why we want to talk about this.
Yes.
So what is the government testing regulations in the state of Illinois for radon in a house?
Yes. So the regulation is really about disclosure. So if you're selling your home and you have high levels of radon in your home, then you have to disclose that. So the state of Illinois does not require anybody to get a mitigation test, but you do have to tell people if your home has high levels, and not even just if you're purchasing a home, even if you're renting a home or a condo or anything like that. Now, as of last year, you do have rights as a tenant to have either yourself you can test or you can have the landlord test. And if it does come in with high levels of radon, then I think the landlord has 90 days within which to mitigate the property. And if they don't, then you can leave.
Okay. And
without any recourse.
Okay, and that's on leasing a property. On selling a property, I know our sellers fill out the radon disclosures. I mean, they have 3 disclosures to fill out, but that radon disclosure basically says, do you have any knowledge of any radon in your house? And really, the only way you're going to have knowledge is if you test it. So if somebody hasn't tested, they're probably not going to have knowledge. And then also, do you have any reports? So the only way you're going to get reports, I would say, is if you tested it. So,
Exactly.
But this disclosure has to be given to the purchaser or the person that's interested in buying your house so that they can see it before they write the offer on your home. And that all has to go together when they're writing the offer. But if there is radon, like if, let's say the buyer decides during the home inspection to get the home tested, can you tell us a little bit about that test? Because there's a cost to it. I mean, if you could let everybody know a little bit about the cost, and would you need 1 or 2 monitors in a home, and tell everybody about that.
Sure. So a radon test can cost anywhere from $225 to $250, depending on the different foundations that a person might have in their home. So, for example, if you have a basement that could, if it's finished or if it's not finished but could be finished at some point, and someone could be living down there, then we would test in the basement. Let's say you have a basement with a crawl space. So we are trying to test in areas that people spend time and breathe in. So nobody lives in a crawl space, like I said, unless you're Harry Potter. But we would not test in a crawl space. We would test in the room above the crawl space. So if there's a bedroom or a dining room or a family room, that would be our second place to put a monitor. Now, let's say you have an addition on your house that's not above the crawl space or the basement, and it sits on a slab. That would be a third monitor that we would need to place.
Okay. So that would be something you'd pay for the first two.
Normally, like with us, so our fee covers the first 2, and if there's a third or a fourth monitor that needs to be set, then there's a slight additional fee.
Is there for a seller for a seller now the buyer wants to have the radon test. So for the seller, obviously you need to notify the seller and say, okay, well, how do you prepare for this radon test? So,
Yes.
I mean, there probably are certain things that they have to do.
Yes, there is. There are certain protocols that have to be met during the radon testing because it's such a short period of time that we're testing for. So we
How
really
long
have
is
to.
it?
So it's a minimum of 48 hours that the monitor needs to sit in the home. And the reason for the 48 hours is that radon has a half-life of 48 hours. So after 48 hours, half of it dies off.
Oh,
And then that's why it's got to be a minimum of 48 hours. So we try to leave it for that amount of time. Sometimes, if it happens where we can't get back into the property, maybe it's 3 or even 4 days. That's not going to make the test better or worse, maybe more accurate if you're leaving it there a little bit longer. But so we also have to follow certain protocols of what we call closed building conditions, because again, we're leaving the monitors in there for such a short period of time that we have to make the environment be as perfect for that test as possible. So closed building conditions means that all the windows in the home need to be closed 12 hours prior to the test beginning, and then for the duration of the test. So if we happen to leave the monitor there for, like, let's say, 72 hours for whatever reason, it would need to stay closed off for the 72 hours plus the 12 hours beforehand. So that's one protocol. And then also exterior doors also need to be closed off, except for normal entrance and exiting from those doors. And then during the placement of the monitors, we have to make sure that there's so many feet off of a window, off an exterior wall, a fireplace, a sump pump, a fan. So yeah, there are very particulars to make sure that that test is going to be as accurate as possible.
have you ever gone to a house and let's say the window was left open? What do you do all the time? All the time.
Many times, especially in the spring.
What do you do?
So we actually have these great monitors. The technology on our monitors is some of the best technology they have out there. And so it allows me to still set the monitor at the time, but I'm able to delay it for up to 12 or 24 hours if I have to.
Oh, okay.
So for actually just happened yesterday, had a listing agent call me and say, oh my gosh, somebody opened the window and left it open. So I said, no worries, we'll delay it for 12 hours and we'll just leave it there. So it worked out okay.
So there's a workaround.
There's
always
workaround.
a
There has to be a
workaround,
workaround, yes.
And your placement again, where do you place the monitors generally?
So again, we're trying to place it in the areas in which people live and breathe.
So in the basement,
In the basement, yeah. Again, even if it's not finished, we would place it there because potentially it could be finished and people would be living down there. And then in, family rooms or bedrooms or things like that.
And how do we know that the home has radon, like levels? Like what are the safe levels and what are the levels that we question?
Yeah. So the only way you know is to test. You can't know your levels of radon if you're not doing a test on there. And the levels that you're looking for. So the US EPA and the Illinois Emergency Management Agency, who is our licensing board, they say that the action level is 4.0 picocuries per liter of air, and that's how we measure radon. So anything at 4 or above, then they recommend that you mitigate your home.
So when you talk about mitigating, what is it that we're looking at?
So a mitigation system, it's not, a lot of times people get very upset that their potential home has high levels of radon, but it's actually normally a pretty easy fix.
Okay.
Where a mitigation system is placed in the home, usually at the foundation, where there is a suction point, and it's literally sucking the air out from underneath the property and dispersing it to the outdoors.
So I know that we do have a mitigation system. We have 3 suction points. And I guess it depends on because there's like a fan motor that runs all the time,
24/7,
sucking the radon out to bring the levels down.
Yes.
And there's a little color tube,
a manometer. Mm-hmm.
Is it what it's called?
It is.
A manometer.
Yes.
that basically tells you if it's working or not. So one side has to be higher than the other. If they fall level, then that means there's an issue with your motor.
Exactly. Or it could be clogged. We've had that happen before, where the system itself has something in there and it's not.
We've been very lucky. Watch, I'm going to jinx myself. But we've been very lucky with the and also too, what I've noticed in our basement, it's brought down the levels of humidity in the basement.
Yes.
So it's more like an environmental kind of a upgrade to your house, really.
Yes. And it doesn't just get rid of radon, it gets rid of all of that junk underneath your home. There's allergens and
Yes.
there's herbicides. There's a lot of stuff that's in our soil that we are breathing in, and it gets rid of all of that. So it's really a good system.
It is. It is. And we've had ours for a while now. So my question is that how long does the the mitigation system need to be in your home before you retest it? Because I know in our contract, it's the multi-board contract, it states that if the seller does go ahead and put the, put the mitigation system in, they've got to retest it and show that the levels have come down for the new buyer, if it's agreed upon that that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So what is the
24? They say 24 to 48 hours.
So they have to keep the system in there 24 to 48
before
hours
they can test it to make sure that the levels have been brought down.
Okay.
Yes.
So after it's been tested, are there different types of mitigation systems? Because I know there's the one that I have in my house, and that is
An active mitigation system.
And what's the other one?
So what makes yours an active mitigation system is that it has the fan affixed to it. So it becomes a mechanical system at that point. And like we were saying, it runs 24/7, sucking that air out from underneath your home. But the other type of system is a passive system. And so actually that 2007 a law that Illinois enacted was added to in 2013, where they stated that all new construction had to be built with a passive system already in it. So passive systems actually can work well. And what they do is they don't have the fan affixed to it, but they allow the natural airflow of your home to use the PVC tubes that are in the ground and get the air out that way. And so again, they could work really well or they could not work at all. And the only way you will know is if you test. Exactly.
Yes. So we have some other let's jump on and let's see if there are any questions. So if there are any questions, be sure to pop in. We're going to start at the top here. We already did that one. Andre said hello. Hello, Andre. How are you? Brandon, this is very informative. Landlords, property managers, and homeowners should have you on speed. Yeah. Isn't that the truth? Yes. And then we have here's another one here. Chris Black, how many testing units do you place in a home?
And it depends.
That's a good question. That's a really good question.
It depends on the different types of foundations. So again, if you have a basement with a crawl space and an addition on a slab, you would need 3 monitors.
Okay. So if it's just a basement,
and the basement covers the whole foundation of the home and it's less than 2,000 square feet, then we would need 1 monitor.
I hope that answers your question, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. That was a good question.
That was good. Tom Cunningham.
Hi, Tom.
Great information. Well, Tom, thank you for joining. I just saw him this morning at a Rotary meeting. So thanks for joining. And Chris does winter, that's a good question. Does winter or summer matter?
So, yes, it does, because in the different seasons, you could absolutely have different levels of radon, because the humidity is the temperature, absolutely.
Really?
So in the summer, it can tend to be higher because everything's closed off, you got the air on and everything. Okay. But in the winter, sometimes, even though everything's closed off, levels could be a little bit lower because the ground could be frozen. And when the ground is frozen, it's not moving. Radon is not maybe coming up through the ground. So yes, depending on when summer or winter, and they do recommend that if you are testing, that you try to test in different seasons.
So how many times? Okay, so should you test it when you move in?
Yes.
Should you be testing it regularly? And what is the time span of testing it?
So there is literally the US EPA and the IEMA do recommend that you test your home every 2 years.
Really?
So when you're going through a real estate a real estate transaction, you do need to use a professional. But when you're testing on your own, there are DIYs that you can do for yourself. You can get them on at any big box store or Amazon.com or whatever. But you can certainly, yes,
Okay.
absolutely, yes. And you can do it yourself. And there's usually an envelope that comes with the monitor, and the monitors are completely different than ours, obviously. But you like open up the little case. It comes with an envelope at the end of however long you have to place it. You put it in the envelope, you send it to the state of Illinois. They run the test for you and send you back the results.
Oh, wow. How long does that take?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
The state of Illinois,
we don't talk about that. No.
You never know. You never know. Yeah. And then you have to make sure that you meet all the protocols of testing.
Okay.
Even when you're testing on your own, you still have to do closed building conditions. You have to make sure that you're so many feet from a fireplace and all of that stuff. So please, if you're going to do that, read the directions. And then most of all, don't forget that you opened it and you don't forget about it. So I've had people who put it down in the basement, and then a couple weeks later, they're like, "Oh, I forgot about it." And then by that time, it's done. It's too late. Yes.
Wow. So this is all great information. I don't think there are any more questions. I'll just do a one. If there's any questions, you better put them out there now. But I don't think we have any. You know what? I just want to thank everybody who joined us. I want to thank you, Paulina, for doing this. I think this was really great information.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you so much for joining us. If nobody else has any questions, I want to thank all the interaction, everybody who joined us on this show. Paulina, if you wouldn't mind, before we sign off, if you could state, your company name, information, how they can get in touch with you.
Love to. Absolutely. So again, I'm Paulina Carlberg. I'm with the House Doctors Property Inspections. You can reach us at 847-309-3000, or you can visit our website where we have some great information about the radon and everything we talked about today. And that would be at housedoctorsinc.com. Thank you so much.
And again, thank you for joining our show.
Thank you.
And I want to thank everybody who came on, asked questions, and participated. I love you all. Until we meet again, everybody make it a great rest of your week. Stay warm. It's going to get cold and icy out tonight. So
stay
have
safe.
a safe trip, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Bye.